Big 10 Plus 4 is a member of Odd Pods Media and ASAP All Sports All Plays Network. Hello and good morning. Well, afternoon. Welcome into Big 10 Plus 4. We bring you college sports with Midwest perspective. We are blue collar and blue blood. I'm Sam Sprunger. I'm not Dalton Shetler, who normally on our Wednesday show introduces and joins us. But a busy week for him that he's not going to be able to at least come in. We're still maybe efforting if there's a chance that maybe he can join Friday, but we're just going to go on the premise that this week he's not in the office. Tony, You're on the other side of the screen. Do you agree with that?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, normally Dalton joins us on Wednesdays, and unfortunately, due to work, Dalton travels a lot.
What's that?
I know work. He's one of the few people. It's like, I love Dalton, but I am a little jealous, a little envious of Dalton because he literally gets paid to do what we love to do, and that's talk
Correct.
sports.
That's right. Yeah,
but I'm happy for him. But I am a little
sure.
jealous. I'll be 100% honest.
We're gonna give him crap.
100% jealous
all the time. Big weeks this last week in both the men's and women's. Just when we thought one of the teams in the Big Ten was starting to get back to the preseason expectation, they hiccup last night. But we'll get into the men's side. The women, just as crazy. This last weekend, my son went to Columbus to watch the Purdue Boilermakers take down the Ohio State Buckeyes for the third straight loss for Ohio State, who had been undefeated all the way up to that point. Such a crazy season both ways. We're going to get into that. We've got a little bit of bracketology from Mike DeCourcy's too early. Although I did see we're less than 40 days away from March Madness.
Yes, we are.
Yes. It's like basketball season when it starts is like the day after Thanksgiving, where you've got Christmas starting and you're kind of getting into the Christmas mood. And then like Christmas Day, you're like, oh, this is the culmination of everything. That's what Thursday and Friday of March Madness is, I think.
Yep. Yeah. Well, because you've always got so many good matchups, and that's honestly what I've kind of liked about college, even though I know a lot of people hate the idea of, March Madness starts and you can have a Cinderella team that upsets the number one team. It's like, well, that's not fair. I'm like, no, that's kind of cool. Like they did it and they move on. Like, I agree. I love how college, and I feel like college basketball doesn't get nearly enough love. Like you don't really see a lot of college basketball, I guess, kind of fandom until March Madness. And I'm like, but there's so many good matchups. Like, it's not like, to me, like, it's not like the NBA. Like, all the games matter. Like, you can't really go on a too much of a 2-3 game losing streak before it's like, oh, are we gonna make it? Can we bounce back?
You've got those certain teams that you're gonna probably chalk up close to 15 wins, and they've just got to find another 5 somewhere along the way, and that's the interesting part is if you've got a team that's not a surprise team, you probably have about 15 to 16 wins that you're going to say, okay, we've got these. It's now we've got to find some other ones. And I tell you what, the Big Ten, especially in the middle, not the top, not the bottom type thing, it's such just a mess in the aspect of literally one team could be this week near the bottom, and if they go on a 3-game winning streak, they really could end up in the top 4 in the conference right at the moment. So I think last week we misprinted and said that the middle 12 teams were within 2 games of each other. It was 3, but that's still not a lot.
No.
Let's talk a little bit about and one last thing. I haven't looked at the schedule since, but it's been well over a week since the state of Ohio has experienced a win in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Up until Sunday, that was the case. or
Yeah.
after Sunday, that was the case. I did not see what happened. I thought that Ohio State was off until maybe Thursday, at least in the men's side. And
Yeah, till till tomorrow. They
yeah,
face Wisconsin.
yeah, which Wisconsin's another anomaly, or just a conundrum, I guess is the better thing to say.
But at
Is
least they get them in Columbus though, so they don't have to worry about traveling.
well, they don't have to go to the Kohl Center. At least they don't have to worry about that. But what's up with Ohio State? Like we were talking and we thought, well, while they're sliding, they still have the capability of recovering. They're just not doing it.
I say they've lost their last 7 out of 8.
Yeah,
Like,
and what? That's too good of a team. I think Ohio State is too good of a team to lose 7 out of 8.
yeah. Well,
And
and the big difference is before, like with Purdue, they only lost by 2 points. Then they get blown out by Maryland. They lose to Minnesota by 3. Then they lose to Rutgers by 4, and then Nebraska by 3. And you're like, okay, they're losing close games for the most part.
yeah,
And I think a lot of teams end up suffering from that. It's not that they're necessarily bad
you get
teams. Not
snake
like
bitten every once in a while, sure.
Yeah, 100%. But then you look at it, then they dominate Iowa, and I watched that game. They completely dominated Iowa from the get-go. And then they lose to Illinois, and then they get blown out by IU. So it's like, okay, like you said, it's like, okay, what's happening? Like, you guys had a chance to kind of route the ship, and like you said, sometimes you get snake bitten, you lose games at the very end. It happened. That's the
See
beauty and
Purdue.
unfortunate part about basketball is
Right.
like you said, you get a 3-pointer, game's over. It's like and nobody's gonna fault for that because there's only so much you can do to
Yeah.
defend unless you
Yeah.
want to get fouled. So
Well, I'm not an Ohio State fan, but I'm not like a critic and always angry with them, like I am at you. But it really is crazy to see. And you're right. When they played Purdue, they lost. I thought it was 1, but I think you're right. It was 2 points.
mhm,
And they had the lead for a better portion of the first half.
yeah,
And not like, oh, they're so lucky. They were being dominant about it. It was a good 5-point lead, 7-point lead. And then all of a sudden Purdue hit that hot streak and went 8 points in 28 seconds. And all of a sudden it was tied,
mhm,
but that I didn't hold against Ohio State necessarily. But then when you host Minnesota and you lose
mhm,
to Minnesota,
yeah,
that shouldn't happen. And that's Ben Johnson is doing a good job with what he's got, but
mhm,
he doesn't have a lot right now. And for a team to lose at home to a team that is expected to win maybe a couple of games in the Big Ten season,
yeah,
it shouldn't be one that people thought would be in the top half of the conference. So I think there's something going on. I guess Ohio State's only lost 2, so I guess maybe it's been within a week that Ohio State's won a game.
yeah. But still, I mean, on the
men's and women's. That's men's and women's combined.
Yeah, I was gonna say on the men's side, you at least got Iowa, but yeah, like you said, the women's 3 in a row. So then you kind of wonder, is it? And we'll dive deeper into this probably a little bit later in the show, but you always kind of wonder whenever a team like that, when they do finally hit a bump in the road and they stumble, how do they recover? And honestly, you see teams do one of 2 things. You either see them kind of recover or maybe stumble a little bit and then they get back to what they were doing, or unfortunately, like how the Ohio State Buckeyes have done so far, they fell and they just keep skidding
I still think
they keep going.
I say, and you're right, we'll get into this a little deeper, but I think that's one of those that I still think they're just stumbling. I think they'll be fine. But excuse me. Illinois on the men's side has catapulted to their preseason form or position. They are in second place behind Purdue. They are 3 full games behind Purdue. And I think that we talked about this Friday. I think it's just playing for second place. Honestly, Purdue could stumble twice and still hold a game lead, and just And I don't know. I think it's more likely that it's going to happen, that they could fall twice in the rest of their schedule, but I still think it's hard pressed that happens.
Yeah.
I won't be shocked if it does, but I still don't know that it's gonna. They just keep beating good teams, and don't get me wrong, Rutgers is a really good team. They're only a half game behind Illinois at 6-4 for third place. Them and Northwestern both tied for third. Rutgers is a good team, but Purdue beats good teams. I mean, any team. I mean, it's one of those that they play IU this weekend, which is going to be a fantastic game because it's in Bloomington. Both teams are ranked. Don't get me wrong, Maryland just beat IU.
Beat them
but
bad.
yeah, the final score was 10 points, but it wasn't that close of a game, not at all. They looked complacent. IU looked like what they did at the beginning of the conference season, where they were just all of a sudden out of sorts and couldn't do anything
and
that
Maryland
they'd been doing prior.
Yeah, and Maryland was aggressive, and we'll get into it deeper, but I watched that, and I know at one point Indiana was up 7-0, like up 7 points, and then Maryland said, "Okay, hold on, we'll turn it up a little bit," and IU just never responded.
Well, it makes you wonder. I still think I don't know that they're going to. I mean, shoot, they're only a game back of second place. Like that, literally, I'm looking at, let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 teams, not including the Purdue Boilermakers. 7 teams are within 1 game of one another.
Yeah.
1 game. If IU wins that game last night, they're 7-4, tied for second.
Yeah, with Illinois.
Instead, they're in tie for 6th or 5th. I mean, or whatever. I'm not even going to count it.
Well, and I'm looking, and what's crazy is probably, and I'm trying to pick my words carefully because I don't want to put my own foot in my mouth. But you look at some of the best teams in the conference right now, with the exception of Rutgers. There's only 3 teams that have a winning record away from their home court. That's Purdue, they're 6-0. Illinois is technically third best at 3-2. Northwestern is 4-2 away.
Everybody else is at least 2-4.
Yeah, at least. But then you look at everybody's home record. Almost the lowest a top team has right now is Northwestern. They're 10-3 at home. Everybody else only has 2 losses for the most part until you start to get down to Michigan and everybody else. And even then, most of them only have 3. And then you get Minnesota. Minnesota has 7.
Yeah.
So
Minnesota's the outlier, as is Purdue when it comes to the away record.
Yes.
Purdue's undefeated on the road in the Big Ten right now, and that's a big thing. Like, if you can go on the road and win your road games, you don't want to lose at home, but if you're going to lose,
it's better to lose an away game.
It's better to lose an away game, but at the same time, but if you're going to win all your away games, that's saying something about how you can handle adversity right at the moment. So Purdue is also 3-0 against the AP top ranked teams.
Yep.
That's Michigan's 0-3,
Illinois 3-2.
You got Maryland 3-3. Indiana or IU is 2-2. I mean, they're not bad against ranked teams, but except for when they lose to the ranked teams, it seems like they get thumped because Arizona handed it to them.
I will say, it's also crazy. Look at Michigan State. Purdue's 3-0. Look at Michigan State. They're 3-4. They've played 7
ranked
opponents,
and that's and we've beaten that drum, or I've beaten that drum a lot. I totally contend that's why I won't make them an easy outcome March, because and I will also say that is part of the reason why, if they've got a lower conference record, I'll still say they are deserving of a bid. So if they're technically on the bubble and another team and they haven't played near as many ranked teams, Tom Izzo plays everybody because he wants them ready for March. And I don't know. I don't think Michigan State's sitting at 7th or 8th in the conference. 8th in the conference.
Yeah.
I'm still not concerned that they're not going to make it, and I'm not sure I will make them a first round out. I mean, obviously it depends on their seeding and who they're playing, but honestly, they could be a 10 seed, and I'd probably look at them to win.
Well,
It just that's the way it is.
And so out of the 3 and 4 that they've played, technically they're counting Purdue as another one. So realistically, they're 3 and 3.
Well, that's their record in games in which they played a ranked team.
Yeah.
So even if 2 of those are Purdue, it's still a ranked team.
Yeah,
that they played the game against.
Exactly. And you look at who they've played. So when they faced number 2 Gonzaga, they lost by a point. I remember watching that game. They beat number 4 Kentucky at the time. Then they lose to, at the time, number 18 Alabama, who's number 4 now. They beat number 18 Wisconsin. They lose to number 3 at the time, ranked Purdue by 1. Then they dominate number 23 Rutgers, and then they lose just recently to Purdue again, but it was at Mackey. So, like you said, this is a Michigan State team. Tom Izzo says, hey, we're going to be battle tested. And I think it's paid dividends as he's come into the Big Ten conference now. Not come into the Big Ten, but come into Big Ten conference play of playing each other is, this is a team that they can hang with anybody.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I was looking at the standings because right below Michigan State are 2 teams that played this last weekend, and in my opinion, are probably heading in opposite directions. That's Penn State and Michigan.
Yep.
Penn State blew Michigan's doors off. At one point, they were up by 32 that I saw. I wasn't watching the game on TV. I was watching the game cast of it, so I was jumping back and forth between games. At no point, Penn State had a 19-point lead at the half, and it was kind of like the Purdue-Michigan State game that you can get to that point. You're like, okay, well, they're just going to cruise home. And as long as they don't take their foot off the gas and they keep cruising, this is going to be a blowout. And it absolutely was. Granted, it was in Happy Valley, but that doesn't make 30 points.
No, because you got to take 30 points like that. Like that's an NBA style type game. Like how often do we ever see a college matchup where someone just
when we see those? Right before Christmas, because those are a lot of the games where programs have a warm-up, a game that they play before the holidays, but there are no people on campus, so they play a whatever team, and that's where, people like me, where I've got 75 kids, I need to take to a game that's cheaper, $4 or $5 a ticket on the aftermarket, and go watch them beat, Purdue beat Florida A&M. Yeah. Those are the 30-point games. Not Michigan against Penn State,
right?
Or Penn State doing that to Michigan.
Yeah,
Michigan is and Tony, Friday, we were talking about Michigan, or no, it was Wednesday because Dalton was here. Wednesday because it was before Purdue beat Michigan. We were just sitting here saying, Michigan's right where they were projected to be. Now they're 10th.
Yeah.
They went from 3rd to 10th in a week and lost 2 games is all.
Yeah.
That to me is, and which just says if they go on a little bit of a winning streak, they're only 1 game out of, or a game and a half out of second place, and they're 10th.
Yeah. But again, that also gives credit to how competitive the Big Ten is, though. Like you can't afford to lose.
For sure. Yeah. You're not wrong at all. So, well, let's jump to the second quarter. Let's let's jump to the second quarter. Let's talk some bracketology. Okay, we move to the second quarter. We've got we love Mike DeCourcy. Tony, he does such a great job. That's not taking anything away from anybody else that does bracketology. Yeah. But Mike DeCourcy seems to have his finger on the pulse of at least he does a lot of Big Ten stuff, so it helps us in the aspect of it's a little bit more Big Ten centric, but he covers it all.
Oh yeah.
We just decide that we want to concentrate on the Big Ten portion of it. So here we have the latest bracket forecast by Mike DeCourcy at Fox Sports. We've got 8 Big Ten teams now. The one that gets me, and we've got 2 on the first and next 4 out, one on each of those. If you're looking down in the lower quadrant there, we have Penn State as one of the, actually it looks like, Tony, and tell me if you agree with that, Penn State's the last team out right now, according to Mike DeCourcy.
Let's see. I'm trying to see where they're at on the bracket real quick.
First 4 out.
Yeah, no, I see that. I'm trying to see if he has them on the bracket.
No, they're the first 4 out.
First 4
so that
out
means
gotcha.
they're
Okay,
not
okay.
in.
Yep. They're not in yet.
They're not the last 4 in.
Right. Okay.
No, but if you want to walk through the brackets, I'm gonna. The live ticker is in the west, so it's what, east, south, west, west, in the west region. He has Iowa in as the 9 seed, and then Maryland in as the 11 seed. That's saying something, because he's got Maryland as an 11 seed, but it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the 6th team in the conference.
Yeah.
So they're doing well. I mean, they've got IU over there as the 6th seed in the East, and Michigan State is the 8th seed in the East as well. I think those are pretty adequate rankings. I'm not going to say, or seedings, I'm not going to say IU's on a free fall, because they've only lost 1 game. They didn't look good doing it against Maryland, but they have been playing, they won 4 or 5 in a row right before they lost to Maryland. And they'd done it convincingly. They'd actually blown some doors off. Like, that's how well they'd been playing. Trace Jackson Davis got into my player of the year talk. He's not the player of the year in my mind, but he's at least in the talk of the top 2 or 3 because of what he did during that time. Like, he was what he was projected to be. That was the type of player he was being, and probably a little bit more so. But I still think IU is pretty solid at a 6 seed. They probably have some room to move up, especially if they beat Purdue this weekend. If they beat Purdue this weekend, I think that solidly bumps them up to at least a 5 seed, I would think, because that's a big win.
Yeah. I could definitely. Well, I'm looking at the rest of the. So if he keeps them in the East, I'm just looking. Tennessee should be at number 1. Yeah, honestly, I could maybe even see like the 4 or the 5, because I could see them being a little bit better than Marquette. I haven't watched a lot of Marquette so far this year, but I would definitely put them over St. Mary's. So I mean,
and let's say something here too. If Purdue beats IU in Bloomington this Saturday, I wouldn't even move them down out of a 6.
No.
That's a quad 1 loss.
Yep.
Which doesn't hurt you as bad. And I wouldn't move them up over Marquette unless Marquette goes into free fall, because Purdue beat the living daylights out of them earlier in the season. That's one win that a lot of people forget Purdue has.
Yeah.
They beat Marquette, and they beat them pretty handily, and it was one of the first games of the season.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but even if Indiana was to lose, like you say, they would lose to the number 1 team in the country in Purdue, I would still put them over Duke, because to me, Duke and North Carolina both have had massive free-for-alls, and you notice that's why they're sitting at literally the 7th seed in both the East and the West, is because both of them have really underperformed as far as expectations have gone this year. So
well,
I mean,
to me, honestly, I didn't know what to expect from Duke this year. Even if they were, just stockpiled, I didn't know, because, and it's not a knock on John Shire, but it's his first year after Coach K left. This was going to be a turbulent year. I would hope, and I assume that Duke fans are going to give him that pass.
Oh yeah.
At this, because, you're the first coach
in 40 years,
in over 40 years, to be on the sideline as not as the acting head coach, as the head coach, other than Mike Krzyzewski. So I see Duke could do some damage, but I think Creighton, that matchup that Mike DeCourcy has for Duke there, I don't know if that happens because I think Creighton's on the upswing. They may end up in a single digit seed before too long if they keep their trajectory going.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, Creighton I think has had a really good year so far. I think they were another one that they started off pretty slow and now they've started to get pretty hot. They've started to get hot pretty quickly. So yeah, I agree with that. I could easily
They're
see
kind of
them do
along
that.
those same lines as IU in the aspect of they just had that really bad lull right at the beginning of the conference season.
Yeah.
And it made it dropped them so low that they have to play at such a high level just to recoup, and that may make them a dangerous team if they end up with a lower seed simply because they are a lot better than what their seeding is over the course of the year. They've underperformed. If they get hot and start performing at the way that people expected from them, they may be a tough out. So let's move to the South region. The only Big Ten team they've got is the number 1 seed Purdue. Purdue's been in the South, I think, since the first bracketology that we did from DeCourcy. I believe Purdue's been the number 1 seed in the South that whole time.
I think so.
At this point, I don't think there are any. I don't know. Maybe Tennessee might get some argument for the number 1 overall seed, but the number 1 team in the country, in being as dominant as they are, I think Purdue's probably the number 1 overall seed at this point as well.
Yeah.
To the Midwest, DeCourcy has Northwestern as the 9 seed. Northwestern is 6-4 overall in the conference, 15-6. overall record, and they've lost one in a row. They lost last night. I think that's
State.
Yeah. So I think Northwestern is pretty solid. They probably need to, win more than they lose, obviously, but I think they're a pretty good seeding spot right there. Rutgers, second highest seeded team in the Big Ten as a number 5 seed. They've done well. So, and Illinois on the upswing, 7 seed in the Midwest. So Mike DeCourcy, if you look up at the upper right hand corner, has 8 Big Ten teams along with 8 Big 12 teams. ACC coming in right behind with 7, then the SEC with 6, and Big East with 5. Those are teams he's got in.
Yep.
If you look at the last 4 out, there are 2 Big 12 teams in the last 4 in. So and OU, Oklahoma's only in there because they beat Alabama. There's no other, and they didn't just beat them, Tony. They housed them. Housed them.
And I was not upset at all. And this was one because I've watched a little bit of Oklahoma games, just happen to be catching them as I'm driving. And this is an Oklahoma team. At first, I was like, man, this is a kind of dead in the water type team. It was like I didn't really see anything super special.
Only 2 games over 500 overall. Not horrible, but not good either,
Yeah, this was not something I expected a lot out of with Oklahoma, and then they stomped Alabama. And as somebody who dislikes Alabama, I'm not terribly upset about it.
Well, and here's the thing too. I honestly wouldn't have damned Alabama if they'd have went to Oklahoma and lost by a couple points.
Right.
It's hard to go on the road at any point in a legit away game. It's difficult to go and perform, especially against a team that you wouldn't normally see, like Alabama doesn't normally see Oklahoma. No. So it might be more of a difficult battle, but you don't see at one point the number 2 team in the country down by 30 to a team that's 3-6 in their conference.
Yeah. Well, not only that, you look at how Alabama has played this year. Before Oklahoma, they only had 2 losses. They were to number 20 UConn and then number 15 Gonzaga. And then they've got wins against Michigan State. They beat number 1 North Carolina. They beat, number 1 Houston at the time.
Yeah.
Then Mississippi State and then Arkansas. And then poor Vanderbilt last night. We talked about the 32 point victory for Penn State. Did you see what the final score was for Bama and Vanderbilt?
It was a drubbing. I know that, but I didn't see what the final score was.
It was 101-44 Alabama.
Goodness gracious. And I can remember Vanderbilt being decent basketball wise
Yeah.
in the past, and that's a rough one. So they lost by 50 plus. They lost by more than they scored.
Literally.
by a lot more than they scored.
Yeah.
They almost got beat by 60 points. They only scored 44.
Yeah, and it's like, what is that? 57, if I did my math right. They were a
And normally,
3-point away from 60.
and normally, Tony, and this is not me saying, and normally that's a women's basketball score. You see a lot of the top ranked teams thumping kind of the bottom feeders of conferences, or the smaller conferences out of with those games, 60-point loss, and they score or less than what they lose by. That's normally women's bad, but this was Alabama was just very upset that they went to Oklahoma. They went to Norman and came back with a thumping. Their pride was hurt, so they were taking it out on whoever else it was that was next in their schedule. Taking a look at the first four out, that DeCourcy has 8 Big Ten teams in playing in the tournament. First four out, first team there, Penn State. So and that's after they beat Michigan. So they were further back. They've moved their way up a little bit. I think they're going to make it. Yeah, I just think they're going to make it. I think they're going to be able to work their way into a spot, even if it's in the last four, to where they've got to do a first round game. That's okay. I think they're going to eventually make that. You look at the next four out, and you have Wisconsin sitting there. Wisconsin over Michigan too. So Michigan is a game ahead of Wisconsin, but Wisconsin is in the next four out over Michigan. I don't see anything wrong with that. Honestly, Wisconsin's lost 3 in a row. They've struggled lately, but Michigan's lost 2 in a row. So they're not far off,
Yeah. And honestly, I could very easily, I kind of agree with you. I see Penn State getting in. Out of looking at those, the first team that kind of sticks out to me that I would replace Penn State with as far as last four in is West Virginia. They're only 2-7 in the Big 12. Like they're another team. Like that game versus Oklahoma, it ended up actually being a good game. It was 77-76. But these are both teams that have kind of underwhelmed, and these are one of the few teams that they've got wins on, people in their conference. And it's like, okay, like they lost to Oklahoma. They beat number 14 TCU, which I think is what probably projected them up there. And then they beat Texas Tech, another school that used to in basketball was pretty good, but then they turn around and they
also
lose to TCU.
beat a team that's projected to be in an 8 seed. They beat Auburn this last week.
They did. They beat them by 3. So they are getting quality wins against people that are at least outside of the Big 12.
And I think maybe that's why they're in as one of the last 4 in.
More than likely. I don't know. It's like when I first saw that, I was like, I don't know about West Virginia, man. Like West Virginia just kind of like makes me kind
of.
Well,
and I'm betting if you break down their overall record, I'm betting they've got some decent. They've got some wins against some AP top 25s.
Yeah,
I just think that maybe they've done the Bob Huggins is kind of a low tier style of coach, where you would say, okay, well, you know what, he does play a lot of teams. He maybe doesn't do the Tom Izzo to where he's playing everybody he can, but he does play a lot of good quality teams that even if they lose, you don't necessarily say, well. But if you look at the last 4 in, Kentucky's back in.
Yeah, they are. They, again, another team that I think like Duke, like North Carolina, like Creighton, started off slow. I think the Michigan State loss for them is what really kind of sent them into that spiral. And now they're starting to come back. They're starting to get quality. They're one of the few teams that they beat Tennessee this year, and they beat Tennessee pretty wholeheartedly. And you see in the East, Tennessee's number 1 team, and they're, I think, one of the top 5 teams in the country right now, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, you might be right. Tennessee, yeah, they're in the top 5.
Yeah.
So that's a big win for Kentucky. That's a big thing. Big Ten could end up there. This is kind of settled out a little bit, like I mentioned. Michigan's not in any of this. Ohio State isn't, and obviously I'm not saying that we should be seeing Ohio State, but we've seen them pretty solidly in at one point, and they've kind of worked themselves out, as have Michigan. Everybody else, you kind of think, okay, well, it's just a matter of them, working some things out and getting back to pretty solid footing. Iowa, I didn't see Iowa in there. Are they not in there?
I don't think.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, 9 seed against Missouri.
Oh, that's right. That's right. And Missouri's another good team that you have to be careful for.
Yeah, they thumped Illinois pretty badly at the beginning of the year when they had their border game.
Yeah,
and that wasn't a close loss for the Illini. Missouri put a hurt into them, so it's definitely something that Iowa will need to watch out if that were to come to fruition to where they played Missouri. That would be a tough game. A lot of black and yellow in that game, Tone.
I know. As somebody who's colorblind, if you were to ask me, oh, which one is which, I'm gonna be like, look, I'm gonna have to read.
I have to go by reading.
I have to go by reading. I don't know which is which.
Well, I'm really excited. We're in February, so that means the next time the calendar changes, we're that close to one of the most wonderful times of the year.
I know. And the next time the calendar changes, it's my birthday. We're 20.
Oh, like literally, because in 1 month you're March 1st, correct?
Yeah, it'll be my birthday.
You know what's funny is the month of February and the month of March will have the exact same date numbers as our for both months for our broadcast. So we will broadcast on your birthday.
We will.
The only time that doesn't happen with February and March is leap year. Were you born in a leap year? How close were you to being a leap year, baby?
Well, I was a month early, so I was supposed to not even be close.
So were you born in a leap year though?
No, I was born in 95.
Okay, so you were a couple of years off then.
Yeah, what, a year away?
I don't know.
Yeah, well, because a leap year is what, every
4 election? Years.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it would have been 96. So
wow,
that was a year away.
So close. You could be like 6 right now.
I did, right, realistically.
Then it would then your age would match your maturity level, right? Or the level of the age level in which you act.
I would give myself at least 12, but if I was born on a leap year, that's got to be like
a lot of times people would say that 12 is worse than 6.
Yeah, that's kind of fair.
Having had kids at both of those ages multiple times, I would say that's easily the case.
Mm-hmm. Well, because it's right before the prepubescent, like the teenage years, so it's like you've got all the hormones starting to kind of come out. You've got kind of the attitude, or public image, popularity is more of a concern now in school. So yeah, I mean, I could see it, but yeah, I would say at least 12. Like I'm a little bit more mature than a 6-year-old. Like I don't just want chicken nuggets. Like I will expand my menu out to
chicken fingers.
Chicken fingers, thank you. Okay, I get the big kid. I can get a Mighty Kids meal now. Thank you. I don't have to have a Happy Meal anymore.
Still at Burger King, Mighty Kids meal.
You mean McDonald's?
McDonald's, that's what I meant. Sorry.
I would think so. I know they still have the Happy Meal. I wouldn't see why they don't have a Mighty Kids meal.
I've ordered a lot of Happy Meals. I don't recall a Mighty Kids meal. I think they weaned it off.
Sad day.
The app coming out now, they have more deals. Have you experienced the adult Happy Meal, Tony?
No, I've heard good things, but I have not experienced it yet.
The toy was a little weird. I didn't get it for myself. My wife did, but I got it for herself.
Sure, your wife wanted the adult Happy Meal, Sam.
Yeah, seriously.
Sure.
I don't want toys unless they're of value. Of course, my wife will say, yeah, look at the G.I. Joe stuff you have in the background there, or the Walter White Breaking Bad figure. I like toys, but
those are collectibles.
Well, and technically, I guess these are too. If you were to have it still in the wrapper and everything,
But you gotta find a
Yeah.
market. You gotta find a market for those though. Like at least GI Joe, like they're for the most part, there will always be an 80s to 90s baby that will want something of GI Joes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I still have some original toys. My grandmother used to work at McDonald's as like the hostess, so
Mhm.
like she always got the toys. So
Ooh.
like I've got, but me as a kid, I wanted to play with them, obviously. So they're all put together, and I've lost some pieces. But like when the original Flintstones movie came out, the one with John Goodman and Rick
John Goodman.
Moranis,
Mhm.
I have most of the toys from the Happy Meal set from that. I
That's
don't know
all.
how much they're worth. I also have some Animaniacs toys.
Ooh.
So, but anyways, we're running long, and it's thanks to me running back on nostalgia. Thanks for that. But anyways,
We'll take a trip down memory lane. It's
we've
fine.
got a little bit of a break here. We've got some halftime stuff that we're going to cover, and we'll come back and talk about the ladies' Big Ten season and kind of progression on the other side of the half. Let's go to the break. You are listening to Big Ten Plus 4, hosted on Anchor and StreamYard.
I'm Richie, aka Midnight Agent Raw.
I'm Devin, aka Special Delivery Dev.
We're the Super Media Bros podcast. And each week, we give a comedically informative take on movies,
Music,
television,
pro wrestling,
and much more. Check us out at supermediabrospodcast.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else that you can listen to podcasts. Shades on.
We're off.
Once upon a time.
Boring.
It was the best of times. It was the worst.
You got that right.
What's your problem?
We want new stories.
Hi, it's Frankie.
And Garrett. And we host the EverTrending Story, a weekly podcast where we bring to life a fictional story created by our own minds and some of the hottest, craziest trends from the internet.
Find us wherever you download podcasts, and be sure to join the fun on social media at EverTrendingPod.
So Tony, I just bought some flyers to do, like a grassroots type of advertising for Big Ten Plus 4, and
You can't go wrong with that type of promotion either.
yeah, correct. And I got a great deal on flyers at Sticker Mule.
Yeah, I remember you saying that all of our stickers, all of our Klingons, everything like that comes from Sticker Mule.
Yeah, now our flyers too.
I guess so. So Sticker Mule is supposed to be the easiest way you can buy custom stickers, decals, labels, and other printing items all online, right?
Yeah, order in 60 seconds and they'll turn your designs and illustrations into custom stickers, magnets, buttons, labels, and packaging in just days. They offer free online proofs, free worldwide shipping, and super fast turnaround. If you click on the link in the show notes, Herman is going to give you $10 off any purchase of at least $10.
And you can start designing and order in minutes with Sticker Mule.
Yeah, and thank you, Sticker Mule. Yes, sir, Sticker Mule.
I got worried there. Like I heard you say it, and it was like, oh crap, I gotta have everything ready to go. I'm like, oh, it's recorded. Oh, thank God. Got worried. I was like,
Yeah, we did the live read a couple days ago, Tony.
That's right. I didn't know you took the recording. I was like, oh no, I'm not ready. I wasn't ready.
That's why you came running to the screen as halftime was going.
Like,
Oh well, that happens. So all right, now we're gonna move with the third quarter. We're gonna move to the other side of the Big Ten basketball. The ladies. We talked a real little bit about Ohio State and how they went into a slide. Oh, goodness gracious. This has been, they are no longer sitting atop the Big Ten. They're multiple games behind. This, for a team that to have been so solidly at the top. Now, granted, you had IU who was undefeated for part of the time, then lost only one. Hanging around, but you saw the way Ohio State was playing. They were doing everything needed. Got to as high as number 2 in the country.
Yep.
It was looking good for them, and then they played IU, and IU put it to them.
Yep.
And now they went and played Iowa after that, and Iowa put it to them. Or was it the other way around? It might have been the other way around. Iowa put it to them, then IU put it to them. And then Purdue came in last weekend. And honestly, with about 4 minutes left, Purdue was up by 8.
Yeah.
And just kind of cruised the rest of the way to take the game from the Buckeyes. Top 4 teams within 2 games of one another. Let's see here. Top 6 teams overall within 3.
It was Iowa that started the downtrend for Ohio State.
I thought it was I misspoke. It was Iowa, IU, Purdue.
Yeah. So I think the Lady Hawkeyes decided, yeah, we're gonna get some revenge for our men's football team this year. We're gonna cause some.
We're gonna score some offensive points.
We're gonna make them learn.
Well, it's got to get better. I still posit that Ohio State is not bad. They're still number 10. They're in the top 10, even after 3 straight losses, because you think 2 of those losses were against top 10 teams.
Yep.
So definitely they play tonight in Wisconsin, in Madison against Wisconsin at 7:30. Bounce back game. It needs to be. Wisconsin's not an easy out or an easy win, but that should be a win to where the Buckeyes get back up on it and get back into the swing of things.
Well, and we even talked about too after the Indiana loss. Like, you look at their schedule, they still have a tough schedule, because even after Wisconsin,
they have to play Iowa yet again, I think, don't they?
No, they still have to play Maryland twice. They have to play IU again.
I knew they had to play IU. I thought they had Iowa too, but yeah, it's not an easy trip for the Buckeyes the rest of the way.
No,
but it is. They're a good team, so I could see them recovering very well and still being a top 10 team. I don't think they drop out of the top 10, or they stay in the top 10 and not be deserving of it. I mean, they were at one point 19-0. They're 19-3 now. And so it happens. Losing streaks happen. And I know I've brought it up before. When Purdue got beat by Rutgers on the men's side, they had Penn State and Ohio State right after that. That could have turned into a 3-game losing streak for Purdue. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't have taken away what I felt about them.
Right.
I'm much the same on Ohio State. You don't win 19 in a row and get to number 2 in the country by accident. You're a good team. You've just run into a hiccup, I think.
Well, that, and I know I've always discredited a lot of losses. It also means more when you lose inside of your own conference. Like if you lose outside of your conference, it's one of those, okay, well, maybe they don't face them as much. Maybe it can be more of a devastating loss depending on who it is. When you lose inside your conference, those are people that play you every single year and potentially twice a year. So these are people that know your ins and outs almost better than you do. And
here's an analogy from the men's side. I would take the loss by Ohio State to Minnesota better than the loss by Iowa to Eastern Illinois.
Yeah. 100%.
Minnesota's only win so far in the Big Ten.
Yeah,
but it's in the Big Ten. Like, you're never shocked. You're just surprised when it happened.
And which would you rather lose to? Would you rather lose to like an FCS school, or would you rather lose to a Power 5 school that's
the worst team in your
minimum
conference?
In a Power 5 school?
Right. Yeah,
like,
that's definitely if it's going to be anything but a quad 4 loss.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one you'll. I mean, if you're gonna look at, well, we have to have one quad 4 loss. I'll take the one in conference over Eastern Illinois, and that's not knocking Eastern Illinois that it's a joke. It's the fact that they just shouldn't be beating Iowa. Right. That shouldn't be something that's happening, and it did. Yeah, and I think that's more glaring than a loss to Minnesota.
No, I agree.
Yeah. But my whole point on that one is I don't think Ohio State is, on the women's side, Ohio State is bad. I think they're going to be fine. I think they're, and I'm efforting getting some bracketology for the ladies too, and hopefully we'll have that for Friday that we can talk about the women's bracket a little bit and kind of talk about the Big Ten involvement there. Mike DeCourcy doesn't do a ladies side of the ladies bracket, so I've got to find the person that does that. So
Be the first, Sam. Just take that.
If
template,
I
be the
knew,
first.
I can't just throw darts at a dartboard though and say, this is my seating. But we're gonna look at some of the bracketology. The last I had seen, like, just in an article, I think it was something like there were 7 teams that were projected for the Big Ten to be in, and it doesn't surprise me. It just really doesn't. So it's really a good season coming for both sides, and I know we didn't go to a fourth quarter. You know what fourth quarter is going to be today, since we've gone so long, Tony. It's going to be our socials.
That's fine.
So let's jump to the fourth, and let's head on out. So fourth quarter. All right, we're at the fourth quarter. Running a little bit long. I don't mind this being a fourth quarter. This is one of those, Tony, it's such a blowout that we're just running. It's a running clock. We're going to let the clock run out, and we're going to, just take the dub. Right.
Hey, that's all we can do.
I did want to mention, I'm going to mention this. It won't, I will get into it a little bit more, or we will get into it a little bit more down the road. With the Big Ten adding 2 more teams, our name indicates that we're talking about the Big Ten and the 4 extras over the original. Well, in another year and a half or so, that will change. It won't any longer. Our name won't correspond with the conference necessarily any longer.
We're not going to be Big Ten plus 6.
No, I don't want another number. So I'm not gonna. We're changing our name. I'm not gonna release the name. We've been working on a logo and a new name that will go over any. It will adjust on the fly to any additions to the conference, as long as the conference name stays the same.
Watch that change too.
Oh, well, then we'll have a second name change. But in April, after the tournament, when we get into kind of our off season, we will announce. We'll make the move over to our new name. We do have the name picked.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very appropriate. I think it's a good one.
Yep.
And but anyways, so I wanted to start with that before we went any further, since we do have a couple of minutes that I could talk about it. But yeah, coming in April, early April, Big Ten plus 4 will change its name.
Now we're not going to name drop on like April 1st, so that way everybody's like, they're just kidding. That's not going to be the new name, are we?
Thanks for taking my joke away.
Darn it.
No, I hadn't even thought about that, honestly. I don't know when the Final Four is, but usually right around opening day, Final Four, national championship. That's like a real busy, fun time of the year, because I'm a huge baseball fan when it comes to that time of year. So I used to take the day off from work when I had to work and wasn't working from home. I would take the day off to watch the Cubs opening day game or whatever. So I used to take the day off of work to get tickets, because it used to be a real long process to where you had to stand in a digital queue, and it would refresh every 30 seconds and it would randomly pull you in.
Oh, wow.
So like if you walked away and it brought you in and then it refreshed again before you entered, sucked. But anyways, okay. So let's move on from the name change announcement that it is coming to where they're going to find us at this time, Tony, on social media and the interwebs.
Yeah, you can find us on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram at Big Ten plus 4. Sam, unfortunately, good sir, you have to spell out plus.
Yeah, I'm the one that I always type out all my texts, so I'm okay with that.
That's true. But you have to spell out the plus. You can't just put it in there. Unlike Facebook changed the whole entire game. You can put in the plus. You can spell it out. Either one. dealer's choice on that one.
Dealer's choice.
Dealer's choice, always dealer's choice. The house wins when it comes to that. Oddspodsmedia.com. You can find us as well as a slew of great shows. If maybe you like listening to sports and maybe you also want to kind of follow along on cooking some really good brisket or some really good beef, they've got some great shows on there to kind of help you with that.
You want to find a Chicago area beer?
They're the place to go for it. You can also find us twice a week on the ASAP network. We stream twice on Wednesday and Friday mornings. And then if you miss the stream, if you want to see if we maybe potentially do some kooky stuff here on the show, or if you want to see the bracketology that we're talking about and kind of see how we break it down and where we're getting some of this stuff from, you can also watch us on Spotify later that same day as well.
Yes, sir. Appreciative to both ASAP and Odd Pods Media for kind of taking us and letting us do our thing and get it out to everybody that likes to listen to us do whatever.
Right.
But that's all for today. We'll be back on Friday morning, streaming on ASAP and then, available on Spotify and everywhere else you find podcasts the rest or later that day. But for this week, Dalton Shetler not in this week, but we still love him, and he still is. I think he's still our glue, wouldn't you say?
Oh, for sure. I think so. He plays just a tiny bit of a part in that.
Yeah. Yeah. Just like super glue, you only need a small amount of it. It keeps it together, right?
Exactly. Small little tiny bit.
But for Dalton Shetler, that's Tony Hollinsworth. I'm Sam Springer, and from all of us here at Big 10+4, thanks so much, and we'll see you on Friday.
Yep.